Good morning, everyone. Good morning. At this time, I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Commissioners meeting for August 1st of 2022 to order. And I'll begin by saying it is customary for us to have a prayer by a commissioner at the beginning of each one of our meetings, and then a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Commissioner Wayne Outlaw will lead us in that pledge, and during the prayer, you're welcome to stand and join us. You're welcome to use this as your own prayer as you see fit, or a moment of silence, or whatever you have on your mind this morning. And at this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Dan Combs to lead us in the invocation.
Stand with me, please. Dear God, we thank you for another beautiful day that you have given to us. Lord, we just pray that you would forgive us when we so much fail, Lord. Thank you every day for all the blessings you do give us. Lord, we just pray now this morning as we conduct the meeting of Nash County that we do what's best for the citizens of Nash County, what's pleasing in your sight. Lord, we just pray that you would be with us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have one item at your desk to add to the agenda. It is concerning a bid for some sewer work in Dorchester. It was a bid that was taken late this week, and or last week, I should say, and something that Mr. Boone wanted to get awarded if we saw fit to, and if it's permissible with the board, I'd like to add it on as Dorchester sewer lining for item 18A. Any objections to that? Seeing none, we will move forward on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the previous month, and during July, we had one meeting on July the 11th, our regular meeting, and this time I'd entertain a motion for approval. Any corrections or any additions to those minutes? Move for approval. Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Minutes stand approved, and thank you, Madam Clerk, as always. So I won't forget it, I would like to introduce one person that I just met myself that all of us have learned, Dave Cruz. Dave, would you mind standing up? He joins us this morning, and he is our reporter with the Telegram, has been for a few months, and has very recently located to Nash County, and glad to have you here this morning. Thank you. Yes, sir. We are now on item number 5, which is public comment. This is a section on our agenda that we have each month to allow anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the Board of Commissioners about anything you have on your mind that is not otherwise covered on the agenda. If it's a public hearing on the agenda later, we would ask you to wait until that comes up. But if there's anyone here this morning that wishes to speak to an item on their mind that's not on the agenda, this is the time to do that. I do have 3 people that signed up. We have a sign-up period out front before that, but if you happen to have missed that and are here to speak this morning, we'd be glad to hear from you anyway. I do want to say that we have one item on the agenda known as the brunch bill that we took a first vote on last month, which is item number 9, and it's not a public hearing, so if you were here to speak on that, which I see several that have signed up about that item, and this is the time to speak on that if you wish to speak on that. Normally it would be at the agenda item, but since it's not a public hearing. And before we start the process of speakers, I do want to explain where we are at with this particular item. I've had a chance to talk to many of you about it, but In 2017, North Carolina passed this bill, which is known as the Brooks Bill, and what it simply does, as we all, I think know, or most people know, we've had beer and wine sales on Sunday for many, many years. They were allowed to start at 12 noon on Sundays, and this bill gave the option to each local entity to move that up 2 hours to 10 o'clock on Sunday. And it has to be by a adoption of a resolution by the board that is in place at the time that somebody brings it forward to vote on that. It can be a municipality or it can be a county, whichever. In Nash County, we have 2 municipalities that have already passed this back in 17, pretty much after it became law, which was the city of Rocky Mount and the town of Nashville. And therefore, the entities that are located in the county at this time are now still allowed to sell at 12 o'clock. And we had a request to move that or to adopt the brunch bill up to 10 o'clock. If we have that resolution voted on and it's a unanimous vote the first time, it actually goes into effect then. In our case, it was not a unanimous vote, and therefore we have to have this vote by the Board of Commissioners twice, and so this is our second reading of that. And I'm going to stop right there first, and number one, ask the attorney, did I correctly state that, or anything you need to add, sir?
I think you correctly stated it.
Okay, thank you. But with that said, I would this time open up for public speaking, and the first name I had on the list was Joe Price. Mr. Price, if you would come forward and state your name and address for the record, we'd be tickled to hear from you, sir. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Price, 2120 Nicodemus Mile in Rocky Mount. I want to thank you for letting me speak this morning and appreciate all of you, the service all of you give to Nash County. Appreciate that, what you do for the citizens. I am a local pastor. I love living here in Nash County. Think a lot of Nash County. I'm here today because I care about the people in Nash County. I want to get right to the point. I'm here today to ask you to vote no on allowing alcohol sales on Sunday morning. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Belfield for voting no at the last meeting, as you mentioned. And I'm here today to ask the rest of you to consider changing your vote to vote no today. And there's 2 reasons why I'm asking you to vote no for Sunday morning alcohol sales. Reason number 1 is Nash County and North Carolina have a long tradition of working with and respecting the importance of our churches in our community. Our churches do a good job ministering to people, helping people in need. The reason we don't allow Sunday morning alcohol sales now in the county and in other counties is for just that reason, the respect for the faith community, for the local churches. So I hope that that respect and tradition is still alive here in Nash County, but I'm afraid it might not be if you follow through with having alcohol sales on Sunday morning. If you vote yes, you'd be breaking a long-held tradition, and in my opinion, it would be very disrespectful to the churches in this county. The second reason I want you to vote no today on Sunday morning alcohol sales is because research, you can go back and do a lot of it, I did a lot of it this past week, and just plain common sense shows that the more availability to purchase alcohol, with that comes more of the negative social consequences of alcohol abuse. Another reason our states and many local counties and some of the counties in our state limit the hours of alcohol use and the availability to sell alcohol have been just for that reason, to also lessen the social negative impact of alcohol. Maybe it's because I'm a pastor, I've seen more than my share of broken families and, children having a hard time and going to a lot of funerals because of alcohol abuse. But research has also concluded that increasing alcohol sales, even by just 2 hours, also increases alcohol-related harm to the community. And I know everybody that drinks doesn't abuse alcohol, but a lot of people do. And the more availability there is to buy alcohol, the more negative impact on the community. So I want to remind you today, when you vote, you're not just voting about a few convenience stores making a couple more dollars. It's more than that. You're voting about an impact on our community. It's not just about a few more extra tax dollars for our county. It might seem like a good idea today in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to be a terrible idea. A terrible idea. So I've heard for one reason that some of you voted yes last time was because the city of Rocky Mount voted to do it. Well, we don't have to do what Rocky Mount does. I grew up hearing this, and I think you have too. Two wrongs don't make a right. So I just want to leave you with this today. Do the right thing. Don't do the convenient thing. Do the right thing. And I want to say to those of you and the commissioners, I know some of you personally, not everyone, but for those of you as commissioners who also are Christians, who are followers of Christ, do the right thing. Do the right thing. Not what's expected. You know, as Christians, sometimes we have to do the hard thing. So do what's right today, not what's easy. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Mr. Price. The next speaker that signed up is E.J. Fobbs, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Like you said, my name is E.J. Fobbs, and I'm here with my neighbor Patricia People, and I want to give thanks to Wayne Outlaw, Commission Wayne Outlaw, and Commission Marvin Arrington, and the whole staff. See, I was up here last year about a problem that we had out there in the Drake's community. It was a drainage problem that we had some driveways that had got stopped up, and some of them didn't even have drain pipes. And y'all have came out and dug out the ditches and gave us new driveways, and it's have been a blessing that we don't have the drain problem with the water backing up on our property like it was. And also, I would like to give a special thanks to Bob Liberty that works with the DOT. I had the opportunity to work with him on that project because he was ahead of it. Because when Rocky Mount came out to mark the, the water lines and everything, they was off about like 3 or 4 feet. And I got him, about back on track. And he did a good job. And every one of the driveways, the way that he found them, that's the way that he left them. And the contractor, they did a fantastic job. So I would like to thank the commission for doing that for us.
Mr. Fobbs, would you state your name for the record, your address?
It's 5587 Durham Drive.
Okay, all right, great. I'm sure Commissioner Outlaw and Commissioner Ayrton appreciate your comments, and I'm sure they were glad to help you, and DOT always works with the commissioners pretty well, to be honest with you, and we got a great relationship with them. But we thank you for taking the time to come back up here this morning and bring us a positive story.
Thank you, Dad.
Yes, sir. Anything either one of y'all like to say?
Oh, well, I want to thank Commissioner Outlaw for putting us on the right track, and Mr. Lieberman for doing the fine job that they did. I appreciate the cooperation, and the community, I think, really appreciate what has been done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just mention, Mr. Fobbs, it was a pleasure to meet you, and we were glad to do what we could do through the DOT to help your situation.
Right.
And we're available to do that ongoing.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thanks for being
And
here.
also, we want to thank Melvin Mitchell, our transportation supervisor.
Right. Mm-hmm. Appreciate it, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker that signed up is Aubrey Sharon. Morning, Ms. Sharon. If you would state your name and address for the record.
Audrey Sharon, 5088 Oak Level Road, Rocky Mount. Thank y'all again for bringing this up, and I appreciate everything you all do. I know y'all all have a tough job. I wouldn't want to do your job, and so I'm very thankful for there's people like you all that are willing to serve. In regards to what Mr. Price said, I'm a Christian as well, but I also see the need in the county for the development. The North Carolina has already approved the sale of alcohol on Sunday mornings. It is a competitive disadvantage for people in the county, and I'm not up here for self-serving. This is for the entire county, and I think one thing we do need to think about is there's been a lot of money spent on I-95 interchange and on 64 to open up the economic development that's occurring on Sunset Avenue between Rocky Mount and Nashville. And I don't think you want to make the improvements that's been done out there, and you've got a large portion of geography that will not be able to have those early sales going on in the future. So I'm sure that economic development and people that are coming to that area will consider that as well. But our company is not the only one, so it's not necessarily just us that is the problem. There's a lot of people out there in the county. So I would just want to also add that those people in Rocky Mount those businesses in Rocky Mount are already selling early. It's not going to increase the amount of alcohol sales. It will just be amongst who will be selling it, not necessarily that it's going to be more sales. So I just would ask that you consider that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Those are the three speakers that had signed up this morning. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak under public comment? If you would state your name and address for the record. Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Nehemiah Smith, 1620 East Virginia Street, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I am the pastor of Mount Zion First Baptist Church and in Rocky Mount, the oldest church in Rocky Mount. And of course, yes, we do have alcohol sales on Sunday, and I've heard what Pastor Price said, and I've heard what the young lady said. But the one thing that I would question is, are we concerned about economic development or human development? Are we concerned about alcohol sales? Or are we concerned about how people live? And of course, we have a number of people in our community where our church sits in Nash County that have or abuse alcohol. And you can come out of church and see people even on our own property who are drinking that early in the morning and without any regard to what's going on in church. You'll see them on our auxiliary building, sitting on the steps. I think my deacon, your commissioner, fellow commissioner, Deacon Belfield, found the other day where they were drinking as well as sleeping on the porch of our house that we have there. So there are a lot of things. There are a lot of social ills that we see. Alcoholism is one. Of course, drug use is another. But I would hope that we could at least just take the time for a break and say, hey, it's okay for Nash County, in the county, not to have alcohol sales starting at 10 o'clock. That doesn't mean that we have to go along with what they do in Rocky Mount or what they do in other places. It's okay to be different. And I would hope that you would vote against early alcohol sales at 10 o'clock in the county. We already have it in the city, and like I said before, we do have a number of issues. So I must say that I stand with the pastors in the county that are against early alcohol sales. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Smith. Anyone else here wishes to speak on any item under public comment? Seeing no one move, I appreciate those comments this morning, and that item will be coming up just a little bit later on as far as the brunch bill. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is the introduction of 4-H youth delegation. I'll call on Sandy Hall at this time. Good morning, Ms. Hall.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
We're good. Hope you are.
So I'm very excited to be here today because it's been over 2 years since we've been able to bring a 4-H'er and introduce them to be the Nash County 4-H representative at the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, they have the Youth Voice Summit. As you all know, the event will be held in Cabarrus County, August 12th to 13th. The Youth Voice is held in conjunction with your conference. The purpose of the Youth Voice Summit is for the youth representative to talk with their county officials, learn about your role as a county commissioner, as the governing body for our county, and the county budget process, as well as develop strategies to further their leadership and communication skills. So today I have Nash County 4-H'er Madison Hill, who will be our representative. Madison will come before you and provide you some information about her as a 4-H'er. At the end of the presentation, we will need to take a picture to capture that photo to submit in hopes that you will see that photo again at your commissioners' meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Madison Hill.
Right.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Madison Hill, and I will be your 4-H youth delegate at this year's North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. Here's a little about me. I'm 15 years old. I work for Nash County Recreation and Senior Services part-time. My parents are William and Tamika Hill, and also outside of 4-H, I attend Northern Nash High School. I'm an upcoming sophomore, and I enjoy playing volleyball. My 4-H experience started when I was 9, which was 6 years ago. My first 4-H encounter was a sewing camp, instructed by Miss Jane Tyson, Miss Brenda Wynn, Miss Cheryl Glover, and others. This is where I made my first ever piece, an apron. I learned about the basics of sewing, from cutting fabric to measuring to using the right pair of scissors. This made my love for sewing increase. Due to my love for sewing, I decided to join the sewing club in 2016. Over the years, I've joined another club, which is Teen Clovers. This club helps teens work on leadership, community service, and many more. I've also done a lot of events. Some of the events include EYFP, Empowering Youth Family Program, which is a program that gives families tools for better communication. This program also talked about the abuse of opioids in the community. My mom also became a trained facilitator in the program. So 4-H isn't just for kids and teens, it's for adults and parents also. Some of the other events I've been in has been 4-H Congress, teen retreats, away camps, presentations, AIRE, 4-H internships, project record books, and many, many more. On top of that, I've been given the opportunity of meeting new people across the state and making new friends. In conclusion, 4-H has helped me in more ways than I can think. It has helped with public speaking, leadership, interviews, and also learning an important life skill, sewing. I look forward to seeing you all and spending more time with you during the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners annual conference in a couple weeks. Also, I look forward to sitting with you at the Saturday morning breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. What you need now, Ms. Hall?
She come up there and have a picture with all of you.
She can. Tell us how you want that.
Want to just come, if you could come and stand with her next to the seal, that would be great.
All of us.
All right. We're going to take a few, okay?
Thank you very much.
Madison, if you could come back to the podium just a moment. I first want to say, listening to what you had learned, you mentioned the word public speaking, and just listening at you this morning, I think you learned that very well.
Thank
By the
you.
way, I don't know about your sewing yet, but maybe we'll get a chance to see that. I just wanted to give any other board member a chance to speak to you, and thank you for being here this morning. Very impressed with what you had to say.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Belfield, I think you generally like to speak to these.
Oh, yes, 4-H is a very valuable organization in providing opportunities for people for leadership, to be good leaders, and not only that, self-sufficient, how to take care of yourself in society and not have to depend on others. And I have seen many boys and girls go through 4-H here in Nash County that went on, several got PhDs teaching in university. Some decided they wanted their own business, and they went into business, electricians, and I could just go on and name, and I know you will do well. You stick with 4-H, you're gonna be well-grounded. I stuck with it from age 9 right on through college. They even have 4-H on college campuses. And it provides leadership and teaches responsibility. And I know you'll do well.
Thank you.
Madison, you have a lot to be proud of already in your 15 young years. Keep reaching for your goals, and we look forward to seeing you at the Association of County Commissioner meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And thank you, Madison. We've got your back.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you also, Madison, for being in 4-H and showing us what you've achieved today. Like Robbie said, we've seen part of it, your public speaking, and we just appreciate you. And 4-H is a great program for young people growing up. It teaches them a lot of values. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At 15, I admire your poise and your self-confidence, and
Amen.
you're doing very well.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you.
I would just say that we are the present, you are the future. Our future's in good hands. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right.
Madison, do you have either of your parents with you this morning, or are they working?
Right here.
Okay, I'd like for you to introduce those, if you would. You told us who they were.
No, I don't know how to say it. This is my mom, Tamika, and then my dad, William.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for being here this morning. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. You too.
Let's give her another hand. All right, the next item on the agenda is item number 7, which is a draft land use presentation, and I'll turn it over to our planning director, Adam Tyson, at this time. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. We do have the opportunity this morning to present to the board the draft version of the Nash County Land Use Plan. Of course, the board's familiar with the current land use plan, which we consult whenever we're considering a zoning or a text amendment. Since September of last year, our staff, as well as a joint steering committee consisting of 3 members of this board and 4 members of our planning board, have worked collaboratively with Stewart, our land planning consultant, to create this new land use plan that will hopefully guide the development of the county over the next 10 to 20 years. The current draft version of the plan was presented to the full planning board back on July 18th. And 3 public meetings are scheduled later this month in order to receive citizen input before the plan is formally considered for adoption. There's no action required on the plan this morning by the board. This is just a discussion item of the draft version before we move into the public input phase of the project. The plan will return to the board in its final version with a more formal recommendation from both the steering committee and the planning board, hopefully in the near future. This morning, Senior Planner Allison Evans with Stewart will be presenting the draft plan to the full board. That includes the revised future land use map as well as the new plan goals and recommendations. At the conclusion of her presentation, I want to come back and go over the details that we've been able to finalize for the 3 public input meetings, which has been done since your agenda was sent out. And so with that, I will introduce Ms. Evans, and we thank her for being here this morning.
Good morning again.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I have some familiar faces here and some new faces. My name is Allison Evans, and I am with Stewart, a company out of Raleigh that's been assisting the county in drafting this land use plan. So today, like Adam said, we're just going to touch on the process that's brought us here to this point of having a draft plan. We're going to go over the major points of the plan and then touch on those upcoming public meetings that will bring it to the public. So, just to set the scene, as Adam said, you all deal with the current future land use plan quite often, but just for those who may be less familiar, it's a long-range plan that that codifies really a vision for the county for the next 10 to 20 years in a place that is experiencing growth. It's advisable to update it periodically, and so this would be one of those opportunities. It is guidance on land use, intensity, and design, and will also touch upon staffing, programming, and infrastructure investment. It sets policies for when boards like you or administrative staff or the planning board are making decisions in those regards. It is collaborative. We want it to represent a community and their vision, so it's a community conversation. And it's policy, not regulatory. Again, it lays the groundwork for current and future regulations. It is not a rezoning of the county. We hear some people have a knee-jerk reaction sometimes, but it will guide those future rezonings in places that are set to develop. And again, a current future land use map is required by state law thanks to the 160D updates. So where we are in the process, we're about 2/3 of the way through. We've gotten to know the county, and we've come through a few iterations of the future land use map with the help of the steering committee and the planning board. So right now, we are at the leadership meetings phase of the project, right before we bring it out for public review and comment, and finally that adoption in the fall. A bit more of a detailed schedule. We have had 6 steering committee meetings so far. We've been to the planning board twice, and we've had a public survey. And coming up, we will have another steering committee meeting, and before we begin those adoption proceedings with the planning board and this board. So, first to introduce the plan goals, we have 5 goals. They are kind of the overarching statements of what this plan is setting out to achieve. They touch upon a few different areas, so the first being to anticipate purposeful residential growth through infrastructure and utility planning. I understand this is a very common theme that's debated in this room and others, so hopefully this plan will set everyone on the same track in that regard. We want to implement the Economic Development Strategic Action Plan. We have been working a lot with the Economic Development Department, and their opinions and advice are reflected in this plan. We want to preserve the county's agricultural heritage, protection programs, and support farmers and agricultural operations where they choose to proceed. We want to protect the natural environment, these beautiful rivers and streams running through the county, specifically those water resources, water supply watersheds, and forested areas, and to expand the park system by providing a variety of accessible and equitable recreational facilities, programs, and opportunities. So the kind of the cornerstone, the keystone of this plan is the future land use map, and we've gone through several iterations thanks to the advice of the steering committee, and we've landed on this one that we believe reflects that vision for the county that we'll all be working towards in the future. It's a large area. This map doesn't quite indicate the nuances, and we'll have a more detailed view in a few slides. But the big thing that pops out now is that large green area. We're calling that the residential agricultural area. That is where, agriculture will continue to operate, residential growth will happen, and we have written into our descriptions, if there are appropriate non-residential uses either to support agriculture or an emerging crossroads, those will also develop in that green area. The gray designates that those are the municipal territories, and again, this plan is only for the unincorporated area. And then from this large view, we see those blue areas, which are those watersheds and stream buffers. So to delve a little bit more into those character areas that will be guiding our rezoning decisions, again, that green one, we anticipate to be where our residential growth happens. Ag is allowed everywhere, it will continue as it is, and it offers guidance for non-residential uses in locations meeting certain criteria. And those are specified in more detail within the plan. Our 3 non-residential areas where your growth and development and employment opportunities happen are purple, our major employment areas. Those are major industrial uses, wholesale uses, offices, research and development. Those really came from conversations with the economic development team and from the economic development strategic plan suiting those needs. They're typically near interstates and areas served by utilities. In that red area, we see as a larger commercial area, if a grocery store comes in, a larger commercial development. We also think it's appropriate for offices and employment, R&D, maybe not industrial, but a little bit quieter and smaller scale employment uses. And those are also near highways and major intersections. Finally, we have the rural commercial areas. Those are those crossroads where we see those emerging uses. They're supporting their neighbors. They're more your weekly uses. You're running out for a couple things rather than traveling a half an hour to get your groceries or whatever. So those are typically found in crossroad areas and are likely to pop up should a need emerge, if there's if something it needs to emerge to support a new residential area, those are likely will take the form of those rural commercial areas. Municipal growth, again, are those areas under the towns and cities jurisdiction, and that blue is the water protection and natural resources. Those are immediately surrounding watersheds and stream buffers. So to zoom in a little bit, we can see that water protection area in the blue, an example of the rural commercial. There, this is such a large scale. There is, quite a few acres within these once you really get down into the map. We can see the general commercial major employment areas in the red and the major employment industrial areas in the purple that we've put together thanks to the economic development team. So the draft recommendations are located within 5 sections of the plan. We're going to go over some big ideas for each of these sections, which are land use, economic development, transportation, parks, rec, and open space, and utilities. You can see those kind of echo those plan goals. So we are going to go over just the big ideas for each of those sections, and it's good to remember that there are detailed action items and steps within the full plan supporting all of these big ideas, where we really hash out the details of execution. But again, these are just guides for making policy decisions and not, a new ordinance for the county just yet. So our big idea number 1 in our land use section is to utilize the future land use map to direct non-residential development to employment and commercial nodes. That doesn't mean only towards those nodes, but it does give us a direction for future expansion, and residential uses can tap into those. And our big idea number 2 is to update county ordinances and zoning and subdivision standards to better align with these plan recommendations and the market needs. We understand there's probably quite a few text amendments and things of that nature that come to you. People are proposing things that may not fit in with the current development ordinance, and there's ways that we can update that in the future to better reflect and execute this plan. And just quickly going through the rest, because I'm sure I do want to be cognizant of your time. In our economic development section, our big idea number 1 is to build Nash County as an employment hub, and that is executing a lot of that strategic development vision plan. Big idea number 2 is to support farmers in the retention and expansion of agricultural operations. How can those people who want to continue their farming operations, how can we support them and allow them to make money maybe in some more ways that we haven't typically anticipated? Transportation, we need to get around the county. We want to plan for regional transportation success. We need to remember that although the county doesn't own its own road system, there are a lot of partners to work with. And, our transportation system really sets the precedent for how we grow and how we operate every day. So we're thinking in this plan, we want to work with those partners on a regional scale, connecting to Wake County, connecting to the airport, and envisioning that for the future. Our big idea number 2 is to ensure that the development of Nash County's transportation system benefits the whole community. Some people with different accessibility issues may have different needs that we would like to anticipate, so all of our community members can continue moving about in the best and most efficient way. Our big idea number 3 is to explore the potential for a regional greenway system. There are a lot of larger regional systems that Nash County is right in the crosshairs of that, by tapping into those, it can bring in tourism and a really great asset for attracting people to the county. Our big idea number 4 is to ensure land use planning and development supports all modes of transportation. For parks, recreation, and open space, we would like to develop Nash County's outdoor recreation system to help draw tourism and employers. Again, employers look at a lot of things when they're doing site selection, including what quality of life will my employees have. So expanding the parks and greenway system is a tourism opportunity and also inherently an economic development opportunity. Our big idea number 2 is to preserve and enhance the county's natural environment and water resources, rather straightforward. And finally, infrastructure, utilities, and services. I understand these are, definitely a point of debate in this room. We want to use local land use planning to help guide public infrastructure installation and system development. We know that land use planning, that future land use map, and our utility expansion strategies are very intrinsically tied, and we want to make sure that we are operating in a way that supports this vision for the county. And finally, our big idea number 2 is to ensure emergency services, schools, public utilities, parks, and other county services continue to serve county residents effectively. This means as growth continues in the county, we are still offering that high level of service that people have come to expect in Nash County. So that was a deluge of information, and there is more available within that draft plan. Adam mentioned that as we go on, we will continue to refine recommendations based on what we hear in this room and we hear during those public meetings. And we will be preparing those for those public meetings, and I believe Adam has more details for you on how those will be happening.
Thank you, Allison. Since your agenda was published, we have finalized the details for the 3 upcoming public meetings, which are on the screen here. From the beginning of this process, it was important to the board that we hold these meetings in different geographic areas of the county. And so we'll hold the Central Nash meeting on August 16th here in this room. We will hold the Northern Nash meeting on August 23rd at the Drake Community Center. I want to thank Commissioner Arrington for his assistance with setting that venue up. And then the Southern Nash meeting will be held at our Southern Nash Senior Center on August the 25th. All of these meetings are scheduled to begin at 6 o'clock. There will be some enlarged visual materials displayed around the room, including the previous and the proposed future land use map so that we can compare what our current plan is to the proposed new plan. In the first 15 minutes of the meeting, we'll encourage the citizens who are present to look at those materials. About 6:15 p.m. we'll gather for a presentation from Stewart, something very similar to what the board just received. And then after the presentation, we'll encourage the public to, again, interact with the visual materials that are displayed and to communicate with members of our staff and Stewart's staff any information or input that they would like to bring back to the steering committee for consideration before we adopt the final version of the plan. This is really just an outline that you've been presented today. There are specific objectives and actions that are recommended by the plan under each of these big ideas. And of course, the detail of that will be communicated to you before you're asked to formally consider this for adoption. We'll begin after this meeting with advertising the 3 public input meetings. We have a direct email list that was generated by people who participated in our survey early on in the project. We'll also be using our website, social media, and a press release to make sure that citizens are aware of their opportunity to interact with this plan before it is considered for adoption. Of course, there'll also be a formal public hearing before the board before it gets adopted. I want to thank Allison Evans for all of her work on this project. She has accepted a new position outside of Stewart that's going to take her closer to home, and so we congratulate her on that. I also want to introduce Andrea Radford, who is present with us this morning. She's going to be taking over the project for the remainder of the schedule. Andrea has been with us since the initial kickoff of the plan, working in the background. And so even though the steering committee is not necessarily as familiar with her, she is familiar with the plan, and we look forward to working with her to carry this plan across the finish line. And with that, myself or Allison will be glad to take any questions that the board has on the draft plan. And then we'll proceed with the public input meetings.
Adam, would you state those locations one more time, please?
Sure, and they're on the screen there for you. The Central Nash meeting is August the 16th here in this room. The Northern Nash meeting is August the 23rd at the Drake Community Center. And the Southern Nash meeting is August the 25th at the Southern Nash Senior Center.
All right, any discussion from the board?
I've got one point of discussion. I'd just like to make sure that whatever the format is for public input, that the citizens can be assured that their input is worked into the plan.
Certainly.
That it's not just goes in somebody's computer, never to be seen again.
Right. So the specific comments and concerns that are communicated to both the planning staff and Stewart at these public input meetings will be brought back to the steering committee at a specific meeting that is designed to review and consider those comments. And then there'll be an opportunity for the steering committee to make any changes based on those comments prior to carrying the plan forward. And part of the reason, we have a tentative schedule for the formal adoption of the plan, but part of the reason we're not committing to that schedule is because we don't know what the public input is going to be or how long it might take for the steering committee to incorporate that. And so we will be holding the steering committee meeting after the 3 public input meetings to assess the comments that we get and then appropriately act on them to incorporate them into the plan.
All right, thank you. And I would also encourage Stewart to make the meeting as user-friendly as possible.
Sure.
Avoid the use of acronyms, make sure that things are well-defined so that anybody can walk into the meeting and understand what's being discussed, not just plainer language, but just plain language. Thank you.
I'd like to say I appreciate, and I think we should consider agriculture as a big leader in what we do. Because I get the impression that some folks don't realize how big agriculture is in Nash County. It is the largest industry in Nash County. In 2021, the revenues from agriculture, if I figure right, is $139,132,802. And I just appreciate the fact that agriculture should be a guiding factor.
Other Commissioner, Mr.
Just
Outlaw?
briefly, to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Leggett said, will those comments be summarized with the assessment or responses that are provided, and then all that information provided to the board for those of us that, you know, may not be able to make all of the meetings, so we could get the input from all three of the meetings?
Sure. And I would, and I think that raises a good point. There's really no need to attend, for a citizen or a board member to attend all three meetings, because it'll really be the same information three different times. But I would encourage the board to consider attending the meeting that is closest to your constituents, if you have the opportunity, just so you can have that firsthand experience. But no one is expected really to attend all three meetings, and so we will be summarizing that input and providing
Give
it
us
to
a
the board.
perspective from all three meetings.
Sure.
Other board questions, comments?
Yes. One issue that I see that we're going to be facing is the loss of agricultural land. I was in Colorado for our National County Commissioners meeting, and it was held in Adams County, which is out from Denver, Colorado. Population of 550,000 people, expecting it to grow to 750,000 people by 2030, which that tells me it's a growing population. It's rural. I saw it's a large county, and I saw very little agriculture happening there. They're building it up with housing, and I'm not even sure, I didn't ask anyone, I'm not even sure they even had a single municipality in there, just the county operates that, and it's a large, huge area. And our rural, as I see it, our rural area is going to become an issue as to, some people don't like for you to say, protecting agricultural land, because I want to sell. When I get through farming, I'm too old to farm. I don't have anybody, children to leave it to, that's interested in farming. So I'm going to sell. And you know who's going to get it? Developers. I get cards every week from developers that want to buy land and pay cash. I mean, it's a mad rush. And so somewhere, and it's all over the United States, not just here. Yeah. Over the entire coast, one of our candidates that ran for second vice president placed a lot of emphasis on that issue, rural agriculture. Didn't win, but she brought up an issue that needs to be dealt with, and I think the association will be dealing with it and making recommendations. But I hope we consider, as we put a plan together, whatever we can do to protect agriculture, food production. The population is growing faster than we can support it now with food, adequate food. And look at what's happening in Ukraine, all that grain. They were just able to get a ship out of there yesterday. Russia allowed to go. So agriculture is going to be an issue I see in the future for food production to feed the world population.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Other comments, questions from the board? Seeing none, I'd just like to say, Allison, this is the last time you'll be with us, I understand. Well, I want to thank you on behalf of the committee, number one, and the board for your work. You've done a great job of stepping in, I guess you'd say midterm, and bringing this thing to where we are here today. I hope your reason for leaving is not that we were as difficult, too difficult for you to hang on. but I'm sure that wasn't it. You apparently have found something that you may like doing better, but since we won't see you again, I do want to thank you for your work on this. And absolutely, we were glad to do it. It's very important to this board to get this completed, so we'll have a little bit more focus on where we are going. I think we have learned, I have learned a lot. I think the rest of the committee has learned a lot. And I feel like you have got us headed in a direction that hopefully our board can buy into, and we'll just see as we get our public comments, how those blend in, and see how the public feels about where we are today. But thank you, and look forward to working with you for picking up and finishing up with us. You have been with us numerous meetings, but you need to bring your suitcase with you to the next meeting, I guess you would say. But we'll be ready for you. No other comments? Adam, we appreciate it. This is a no action item, I understand?
Correct.
And we'll look forward. Did you say we were going to have another steering committee before the public meetings?
No, the steering committee meeting will follow the public.
Okay, great.
Input
That's
meeting.
what I thought we were doing. I just want to make sure. Thank you, sir. That's item number 7. Item number 8 is public hearing on a UDO text amendment request A220701, explosive manufacturing and storage. Mr. Tyson, go ahead with that item.
This is a text amendment that grew out of a text amendment that was considered and adopted by the board at last month's regular meeting on July 11th. You'll recall at that time that the board voted to amend our Unified Development Ordinance in order to permit the manufacture and storage of explosives in the GI, General Industrial Zoning District, with the issuance of a special use permit and subject to required development standards. The amended version of the ordinance is on your screen. You'll recall that prior to adopting that ordinance, explosives manufacturing and storage was only a permitted use in our A1 agricultural zoning district, and so the amendment added the new category of general industrial. Now that that amendment has created an alternative path for the manufacture and storage of explosives in this GI zone, the planning board has considered the idea of removing the manufacture and storage of explosives from the A1 zoning district as a permitted land use. If that were to happen through an adoption of the text amendment before you this morning, then an applicant that wants to manufacture or store explosives for distribution would have to apply for a special use permit on property that either already is zoned GI or that could successfully be rezoned to GI, general industrial. I do want to clarify that this amendment would only regulate commercial sites that sell or distribute explosives and industrial sites that manufacture or store explosives. It would not have any direct consequence or impact on bona fide farming operations in the A1 zoning district or throughout the rest of the county that may keep a small amount of explosives on hand for legitimate agricultural uses. It would only affect those that are in the commercial explosives manufacture or distribution operation. The text amendment itself is relatively simple. What you have before you is the current ordinance, and here is the change. It would eliminate the A1 zone from this line item of the table of permitted uses and make a minor change to the language down here, again, to strike the mention of the A1 zone. We're not aware of any explosives storage or manufacturing operations that are currently in the A1 zoning district. And so we don't have any that would become non-conforming land uses with the adoption of this amendment. But going forward, any site that would seek to do that activity would need to be zoned GI, either already or through an action of this board. And of course, that GI zoning could be a general rezoning or a conditional rezoning based on which path forward the applicant selects. As I just mentioned in our previous item, we are obligated by state law to consult our current land development plan. For consistency, when we're considering a text amendment, in this case, the land use plan currently does not comment specifically on explosives manufacturing and storage, and so this request would neither be consistent or inconsistent with the plan. The TRC reviewed this request back on July 13th and recommended approval. The planning board considered this amendment on July 18th. There were no members of the public present to address the board with regard to the request, and the planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval of this change and the statement of plan consistency that you have in your report. This is a one-motion process to either approve or deny the text amendment request. And with that, prior to the public hearing, I'll be glad to take any questions that the board has on the staff report.
Any questions from board members at this time?
Mr. Tyson, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, can you provide a little more background on the justification for this change being proposed? And then the second question is, in some counties similar to ours or possibly adjacent to ours, what zoning districts are the explosives and manufacturing storage allowed by special use permit?
So the background or the basis of this request is mostly derived by the fact that there is so much of the county, probably about a third of the county, particularly in the western and northern portions, that are zoned A1. And under the current regulations, an applicant who wanted to manufacture or store explosives would be permitted to do that in that zone as long as they met the specific requirements for that special use permit. So if they proposed a site plan that met the requirements, the county would have no choice but to issue the special use permit, because that decision is based on their compliance with the ordinance, not on whether a board makes a determination that it's a good idea at that particular location. And so making this change will allow the Board of Commissioners to exercise a little more control, because explosives manufacturing will be limited to just those properties that are already zoned GI or that the board intentionally chooses to rezone to GI. And no longer is the entire A1, which is a huge district of the county, open for that land use. As far as adjacent counties, I don't have the research on what the adjacent counties do specifically for explosives. If the board felt that was important prior to making a decision, we could easily table this request and bring that research back to the board next month, but I don't have that with me.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments of Mr. Tyson on this item? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Belfield. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a public hearing at this time to consider this text amendment as it relates to removing explosive manufacturing and storage out of the A1 zoning district. If there's anyone here wishes to speak for or against this item at this time, we would appreciate you coming forward and state your name and address for the record, and we would very much like to hear what you have to say. Anyone wish to speak on this item? Seeing no movement, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Belfield. Questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. Pleasure of the board. Our charge is to approve the text amendment and to adopt the statement of plan consistency, or to deny the text amendment.
I had some discussion
Sure.
prior to voting.
Absolutely.
At the last meeting, I had voted to add the special use permit allowance to GI. In addition to allowing the A1, my thinking to keeping the A1 in there is because oftentimes A1 is generally less developed And if you're talking about explosive storage, common sense would tell me that you would want a more open, less developed area, and that's generally out there for your A1 uses. So I would tend to think that having it in the A1 zoning district should be allowed.
Other discussion from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
in reference to the meeting last month, I just have a concern about explosives being kept in Nash County. We've got, I believe that at that meeting, it was 96.7 acres, and it was said that once this is rezoned, they would be, the applicant was speaking, I believe, of one bunker with explosives and whatnot, and how they train dogs and law enforcement on explosives. And I just have a big concern with that, because the company, Canine, who they're affiliated with, and so if we approve this, does that not mean that they can put as many explosive bunkers there as needed?
Gwen, I'll let Ms. Tyson answer that, but this action today would have no bearing on that particular item at all, but I'll let you answer, Mr. Tyson.
The text amendment from last month was proposed by an individual that has a particular site in mind. However, that individual's plan is to seek a rezoning of that site from this board to a GI classification. And so he was never planning, the property is not zoned A1, and he was never planning to rezone the property to A1. And so the action before the board today affects properties that are zoned A1, but does not have a direct relationship to that particular site. If Mr. Huff, who was the applicant, decides to move forward with that site, a rezoning request to rezone that property from residential to GI for explosives would come back before the board. Okay. But today's decision should have no direct impact on that particular case.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I'm kind of like Ms. Leggett. I had the impression that we were going to add the GI zone. Where did we get to the point that we're going to take A1 out?
So if somebody identifies a site in the A1 zoning district that they feel is appropriate for explosives, right now, they provide an application and a site plan to the county, and the county is obligated to give them that permit. If we make the amendment that's proposed today, instead of the county being obligated just because it's A1, they can find an appropriate site in the A1 zone, but then they would have to go through probably a conditional rezoning request that would give the Board of Commissioners the ultimate authority to decide whether explosives can be on that site. So we're not ruling out the A1, we're just adding a step of rezoning before somebody can establish an explosives operation in the A1. But if the board feels that the whole A1 zone is appropriate, as long as they can meet the distance separations that are required from a property line, then the appropriate action would be to deny the text amendment and leave it there. So today's request adds an element of control for the Board of Commissioners before explosives are permitted in A1, but it's not required. It's really just a question of whether the board thinks that extra level of control is justified and needed.
Mr. Tyson, I now need to clear up a couple of things. If we leave this in and we had the same situation we had last month and he came in, does this board see that request or does the public get notified of the request?
If we leave the ordinance as is and a request comes in for explosives, if that property is already zoned A1, which the property we're talking about from last month is not, right. But if it was zoned A1, then there would be a public hearing and there would be public notice, but it would not be to this board, it would be to the Board of Adjustment. Right. And the discussion at that meeting that would be a quasi judicial public hearing. And so there would be some strict regulations that the board would need to make its decision, not necessarily on the public's preference, but on the applicant's ability to meet or not meet the criteria in the ordinance. And so it would be a very objective decision. The proposed change to the amendment would make it a more subjective decision because the Board of Commissioners would get to decide on a case-by-case basis if the subject property is appropriate for explosives.
Is the notification to the general public the same for a Board of Adjustment hearing as it is for a zoning request?
It's the same in the sense that all property owners that are adjacent or within 600 feet of the site receive notice. It's the same in the sense that a sign is posted on the property. The only difference is the legal ad only runs once in the newspaper instead of the 2 times that are required for a rezoning request. So it's very similar.
Right. And my last question is, it goes to the Board of Adjustments only, and the Board of Adjustment, as I understand it, is really there to make sure that it meets the criteria as far as the site plan, the setbacks and things of that nature, and there's no ability for that board to take into consideration a large group of public that may be surrounding this property's concern as it relates to having that kind of item on a given piece of property.
Right. The size or intensity of the public opposition cannot be a factor in the Board of Adjustment's decision. Now, the arguments that those opponents make, if they relate specifically to the criteria for explosives or the criteria for a special use permit, that can certainly be factored in. But the board can't necessarily use just public preference alone as a factor in making its decision.
Therefore, removing the A1, because we have so little industrial or G1, what is the zone?
GI.
GI, thank you. Opens up a large segment of the county to do this without the Board of Commissioners seeing it, whereas the likelihood of us seeing it is going to be pretty high because we have so little GI land.
Right. So leaving the ordinance as is opens up the large area for potential development of explosives operations without the Board of Commissioners' involvement. And the amendment, as you said, would greatly increase the likelihood that the board would have to take action before a site was used for explosives.
And I keep saying my last one, I declare this will be the last one, but it in no way affects the agriculture community who does use explosive quite a bit, and their ability to have explosive on site and to utilize them as long as they meet all applicable laws otherwise.
That's right. They would be protected by state laws that prevent county zoning regulations from attempting to manage or impact bona fide agricultural activities.
Okay. Thank you. Other comments, questions from Commissioner Outlaw?
Didn't you say that a third of the county is already A1?
Roughly.
Okay, so I'm back to Ms. Wilkins' point. If you're concerned about an operation like this being widespread, then it would appear to me that you would have much greater potential for that with the A1 and the GI. We already, I believe, have over 40 GI sites, right? I think that's the case. We do. I think it's 44 to be exact. So I believe, and you didn't mention this, but I believe you said at our last meeting when we discussed this matter that this was one of the most intensive operations that we could have in the county.
Right.
And that GI was the perfect location for this type operation. So I want to make it very clear that I have not lobbied anybody to bring this back. I'm glad the planning board took it up and is bringing it back because, as I said last month, I think it's appropriate to be in the GI, to be restricted to the GI, and that's where I would vote today.
Other comments, questions?
Anyway, Mr. Tyson, in your own words, with the approval of the text amendment, the County Commissioners Board will have more control over explosives that come to Nash County, period, anywhere.
If there are no other comments, thank you, Mr. Tyson, and I'll just ask for pleasure of the board. I need a motion to approve this with the adoption of a statement of plan of consistency or a motion to deny this.
I move for approval of the text amendment and adoption of the statement of plan consistency.
Motion by Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arrington. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign?
No.
Vote appears to be 6-1. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Tyson.
Thank you.
We're now on item number 9, which is the adoption of the Brunchville Ordinance for the unincorporated area of Nash County. That is similar to what some municipalities have approved, and I'll call on Susan Phelps at this time to make the presentation.
Good morning.
Don't have to call on her, she's already here. Good morning.
I won't. At the July 8th meeting last month, or July 11th meeting last month, this brunch bill was brought before the board again. The original request was brought at the July 8th meeting in 2019 by the EP Mart. So you have the resolution that was presented before you last month. It is the same for this month. We are requesting that Nash County adopt this ordinance in support and at the request of the EP Mart, but also benefiting all permitted businesses in the non-jurisdictional areas of Nash County. This would align with resolutions adopted by our 2 largest municipalities, the city of Rocky Mount and the town of Nashville. We would like to request that you adopt the ordinance allowing the sale of alcohol beginning at 10 a.m. on Sundays in accordance with Senate Bill 155, Article 4, and adopt a new ordinance to be applied to the Nash County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Article 5. And you have a copy of that resolution before you, and I'm happy to read it if you would like.
Anybody wish to have it read again? I think we're good. You would like to hear it read again? Okay. Mr. Arrington wishes to have it read again. Please move forward.
An ordinance to allow the sale of alcohol beverages before noon on Sundays at licensed premises. Whereas on June 29, 2017, the North Carolina General Assembly enacted Senate Bill 155, entitled An Act to Make Various Changes to the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission Laws. And whereas Section 4 of ratified Senate Bill 155 authorizes city and county governments to adopt an ordinance to allow alcohol sales beginning at 10 a.m. on Sundays. And whereas ratified Senate Bill 155 was signed into law by Governor Roy Cooper on the 30th day of June 2017 and became effective Session Law 2017, Chapter 87. And whereas by enacting Senate Bill 155, North Carolina joins 47 other states in allowing alcohol service before noon on Sunday. And whereas Sunday morning alcohol service will allow the hospitality community and retail merchants in our county to meet the needs of their customers. And whereas Sunday morning alcohol service will benefit the county's small business community and generate increased tax revenues. And whereas our community has a diverse and growing population with different religious beliefs, each of which has various times and multiple days of worship. Now, therefore, it be ordained, the Board of Commissioners of Nash County, North Carolina, that a new article of the Nash County Code of Ordinances is hereby enacted to read as follows. Chapter 8, Article 5, Section 1, pursuant to the authority contained in GS 153A-145.7, the sale of malt beverages, unfortified wine, fortified wine, and mixed beverages is allowed in the unincorporated areas of Nash County, beginning at 10 a.m. on Sunday pursuant to the licensed premises permit under GS 18B-1001. Section 2, this ordinance is effective on this day of August 2022.
All right, any questions? Any other comments commissioners wish to make?
Yes.
Mr. Belfield?
I know some say that this is a business thing and want things to be fair, but it's hard for me to support any kind of ordinance that's going to allow the sale of alcohol during Sunday on church worship hours, which starts from 10 and go to 1. And being a real active church member, I just can't see myself supporting this in any way. I have never supported any kind of ordinance, blue law, that come up to do things on Sunday. It says in the Bible, God worked, 6 days? On the seventh day, which was Sunday, he rests. And we have gotten to the point now that the dollar seems to be more important than soul searching and saving souls. And I just can't support it. I've been asked to, but I cannot. And that is the reason why I've seen too many people abuse alcohol and drinking on Sunday during church hours. You try to get them in church, maybe you can kind of rehabilitate them. Had one to tell me, this is my Bible, and raise his wine bottle up. This is my Bible, and I'm gonna keep on drinking. And things like that, it gets next to me. I wish I could solve that, had the answer to solve it. Well, one way of solving it is don't sell it. Don't manufacture it. But boy, you really create a storm with distillery companies if you even advocate anything like that. But that's where I stand. I've had alcohol to touch relatives, and it took them out of here early because of that. Not in my immediate family, but relatives. And we did everything we could, try to break them off of it, even going into rehab. He refused. I'm gonna stick with my bottle. And it took them out.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Other commissioner comments before I call for,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't mind saying I have agonized over this since my last vote for it on July 11th. I've lost sleep because trying to do what was right, and I felt then that voting for the businesses was the right thing to do. It's unfair to have a Sheetz on one side of the street that can sell at 10 o'clock and a Shell on the other side that cannot, especially when right in our backyard, the city of Rocky Mount and the town of Nashville does it. But then, you know, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting any religion. And it's just that, separation of church and state. I was raised, you don't wash clothes, you don't cut grass, you don't do anything on Sunday but worship. And while I still do that, even if this brunch bill passes, it will not change my Christian beliefs or my faith in God. And with that said, I listened to many of my constituents, quite many, not only in District 6 in Nash County. I listened to clergy. I spoke to 6 clergy of very large churches in our county. And with that said, I said, if I can't be a voice for my constituents, if I can't be a voice for the people of Nash County, what good am I up here? And with that said, I also listened, Reverend Nehemiah Smith hit a nerve. Are we in it for economic development or human development? I listened to Reverend Price, and I had the same thoughts he did this weekend. I asked myself, Just because the city of Rocky Mount did it doesn't mean we have to do it. Just because the town of Nashville did it doesn't mean we have to do it. And so please know that I arrived at my decision almost last minute this morning. And I went over it seriously, but I have to be the voice of the voiceless or those who put me here. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. Other commissioners have something to say? Seeing none, I would call for a motion to approve or deny the resolution for the brunch bill.
Move for approval.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on the motion as stated? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign?
No.
No.
Okay, I think the vote would be 5-2, Madam Clerk. Is that what you read? Yes. Okay. Thank you all, therefore the motion carries. I appreciate everyone being here today on this item. I appreciate everyone that contacted me, be it email or in person or telephone, and certainly I've had them contact me both ways, but that's what the board has decided to do, so we'll move forward with the decision of the full board. Thank y'all. Next item on the agenda is the monthly tax bill, item number 10, and I'll call on Doris Sumner at this time to make this presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, at this time, I would like to present the monthly tax report. As you know, this report is designed to keep the board current on activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. However, it is recommended that you accept the report so to be noted in the minutes. And of course, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions on the tax report? Seeing none, be noted in the minutes. Item number 12 is the annual tax report, and
Number
why don't you
11,
go ahead with that?
I didn't have any refunds today.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes,
I
sir.
guess that's why I skipped it.
Yes, sir.
Item 11 was tax refunds, and there are no tax refunds. Therefore, we'll move to item 12 as stated.
Yes, sir. Thank you. At this time, I would like to present the annual settlement for the property tax collections. As described in North Carolina General Statute 105-373, the tax collector will submit to the governing body an annual settlement of monies received during the prior fiscal year. And at this time, I'd like to say I'm pleased to report that we had another good year in property tax collections. Our tax base continued to grow, and consequently, our levy was about 2% more than the previous year that we were able to collect. And we were able to collect just over $1 million more in property taxes for this past fiscal year. At this time, I'd just like to highlight a few pages of the report, just give you some numbers. On that first page, we have Nash County only for the current year. Our levy was $55,677,980.18, and our collections were $55,173,743.35. And we had an outstanding receivable of $504,236.83. So our amount left to collect this year for our levy was just slightly higher than we did last year, and we ended at a collection rate of 99.09 versus the 99.16 from last year. And Nash County all years, our levy, $58,204,824.75. Our collections, $55,598,128.42, with a receivable of $2,606,696.33. We did have a slight increase on our rate on this versus last year. We ended at about 95.52, where last year we were at 95.21. And our prior year collections, our levy was $2,526,844.57. Collections, $424,385.07, and an outstanding receivable of $2,102,459.50. This figure continues on a positive trend. We ended with less to collect from the year before, and usually our prior years are some of our most difficult years to collect on. Our real estate, Nash County real estate only, our levy was $43,540,492.10. Our collections at $43,122,701.25. And our receivable on our real estate only is $417,790.85. So our ending balance was just slightly higher than the previous year, but we still, I think, did a great job on our real estate collections. And on the Nash County personal property, that levy was $4,416,687.29, and the collections $4,330,241.31, with an ending receivable of $86,445.98. And also, I would just like to say our levy for our personal property did slightly decrease, and I think one of the reasons for that is our public utilities from the state was equalized because of our sales ratio. So
Because of what?
the sales ratio.
Sales ratio.
Yes, sir. Part of the reason why we're having to move up our revaluation.
Right.
Mhm. And also, personal property is one of a difficult class of properties to collect as well, so. And on our motor vehicles, we did slightly increase the levy on that, and that was $7,720,800.79. We collected about a little over $248,000 more in motor vehicles this year than the previous year. I think those motor vehicles might be starting to slow down a little bit now, and but we're pleased to get that much. And on our countywide, for the current year, our levy was $55,033,627.12, and collections $54,387,780.74. Our receivable was $645,846.38. And this countywide includes all the municipalities and the 18 fire districts that we collect for. On our countywide prior years, we had a levy of $3,343,204.33, with the collections of $529,347.74, with an ending receivable of $2,813,856.59. And that is a little bit less to collect for next year. So we're always happy when we're able to decrease those outstanding receivables. And of course, our dogs for the current prior year and are all up. And on the prior years for the Nash County and the dogs, that was down some due to our levy being less than the year before. So we always like to see that positive trend. And that's it, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer anything.
Any questions of Ms. Sumner from board members?
And also, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the tax office staff for all of their hard work and dedication. We've had a little bit rough year, but we pulled together, and I really appreciate everything that they've done. And I also want to thank the support that we get from the manager's office and also finance, and also our county attorney who's there for us all throughout the year. And I'd also like to thank this board for your support of the tax office. And lastly, I want to thank the citizens of Nash County for their efforts to pay their taxes and allowing us to continue to serve them. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we just really appreciate them paying their taxes.
I had a couple of questions. The last year and a half, much as 2 years, when you go by our new car lots, there's very little inventory on there. Has that begun to show up in our assessed value for vehicles yet, or is it yet to come? Because there's got to be a difference at some point.
Yeah, well, we've seen that difference. We have.
You're beginning to see it
Yeah,
already, but it wasn't, what you read wasn't as much as I might have thought it would be.
Right, I think everything is kind of catching up some. We're seeing kind of a slowdown in those motor vehicle sales, and maybe people aren't putting as many vehicles back on the road right now because of gas prices and things that are going up.
Yeah, but I mean, the inability to buy new vehicles certainly is got to affect us quite a bit, because that's just been a real issue over at least the last 12 months, or a little longer than that, really. So I'm surprised it's not more than what it is. I guess somewhere we're finding pretty high-priced used vehicles to continue to buy.
Yeah.
Well, must be. And this is really gonna put you on the spot, but you're a very smart lady. When we finish up reval, what do you think it's gonna look like, percentage-wise, assessed value going up because of reval only?
Oh, I don't know. I
Thought I'd get some answer out of you anyway.
I'd have to try to research that for you.
You don't need to research it. Don't waste your time. Go ahead and collect the rest of the taxes. But,
Oh, yes, sir.
I just, my gut feel is it's got to be fairly significant based on where we were and when we set the point versus what's happened in the last 3 years. Should be a significant change, I would think. And the fact that we're having to do it a year earlier would point in that direction, or I guess it could work the other side too, if they kept right on falling like they were before. Do you have to do it early sometimes when it gets out of range?
Yes, you do.
So that item triggers in each end?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I guess we'll just be anxious to find out what that is. All right, any other comments? Well, on behalf of the board, we greatly appreciate everything your office does, and the fact that we're still over 99% is very impressive. And
Yes, sir, we were very
I'm sure you all will continue to strive to do that, and I hope you have success in filling your vacant positions. I know you had some encouragement last time we talked about it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So what I have for the board is I need your approval.
Sure.
The tax collector's report for tax year 2011 through 2021, and to recharge the tax collector with the outstanding taxes and responsibility for collection for the years of 2012 through 2022.
Okay. I call for a motion to recharge the tax collector. I guess I may need to do this in 2 motions. So the first motion would be to accept the tax report as given.
Make a motion, we accept the report.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Arrington. Any questions on that motion? Commissioner, who was it? I'm sorry. Belfield, okay, excuse me. Mr. Belfield is the second. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries. Second motion would be a motion to recharge the tax collector with the outstanding taxes and responsibility for collection for the years 2012 through 2022.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wilkins, there's a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? You are duly charged, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Mhm.
Thank you. I just said thank you.
Oh, okay. All right, absolutely. That gives us to item number 13, which is approval of an ambulance franchise, and I call on Scott Strufy at this time to make this presentation. I think this may be our second time required to.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
As you said, by state statute requires 2 approvals, and so the recommendation remains unchanged that we approved Eastern Medical Transport, Metz Medical Transport, and MedX Medical Transport to provide non-emergency medical ambulance services to Nash County, and this is for a 1-year term, and I just request the board's approval to move forward.
Any questions? Motion to approve the request.
Move request.
Moved by Commissioner Belfield, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Item number 14 is Middlesex Corporate Center Industrial Development Fund, and I'll call on Emily to make the request this morning. Morning, Emily.
Good morning. So I am presenting on behalf of Patsy McGee today, and we have a resolution that we are hoping to get approved. So Nash County and the town of Middlesex are working with various possible economic development clients that plan to locate on properties within Middlesex Corporate Center. As a result, public infrastructure improvements are needed to serve these properties. We recently were awarded a $500,000 grant from Golden Leaf to help with the cost of extending sewer service. We also plan to submit a grant application for industrial development funds from the North Carolina Department of Commerce to assist with the cost of additional sewer and roadway improvements. On June 21st, we had a related pre-application conference, and on June 30th, we submitted a pre-application. On August 18th, the Rural Infrastructure Authority will decide whether to invite us to submit a full IDF grant application. The proposed budget for the IDF project would be $2,241,640. We plan to apply for an IDF grant of $1,681,230. Part of a match would be from that Golden Leaf grant that was the $500,000. I believe each of you has the resolution. If not, I'd be happy to read it for you.
Anyone wish to hear the resolution read? I guess we're fine. I did read it last night.
Excellent.
All right. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Any questions of Emily on this item? Seeing none, I call for a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve the resolution and to include in it a grant application.
Have a motion, Commissioner Combs. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by a like sign? Resolution stands approved. Thank you, ma'am.
Excellent. Thank you.
Wasn't that bad, was it?
Not too bad.
All right, number 15 is the Exxon Property Approval of Amendment Resolution. I'll call on Susan Phelps to make this presentation. Good morning again, ma'am.
Good morning again. Before you have an amended resolution. Last month, we brought a public hearing and a resolution for acquisition of Exxon Bobby Stanley Lewis property in the Middlesex Corporate Center. We are back today just to amend that resolution. Last month, it referenced a parcel of 40 acres. We are only purchasing 28 acres. So we want the records to reflect that change in the number of acres and the total purchase price. So we're asking you to approve an amended resolution for the proposed appropriation of economic development funds for the purchase of 28.066 acres shown on the map, recorded in Book 43, page 384, from Bobby Stanley Exxon Lewis, located on or near US 264 alternate in Middlesex, and within the Middlesex Corporate Center. It is the Nash County Board of Commissioners' intent to authorize the purchase of said property for purposes of encouraging economic development in accordance with the terms of North Carolina General Statute 158-7.1. The board intends to authorize the purchase of the real property in accordance with the terms of the purchase contract and a sum of $322,759, or $11,005 per gross acre, which will be applied and paid with Nash County Economic Development Funds. This purchase will be subject to the declaration of covenants and conditions, restrictions, and easements for the Middlesex Corporate Center recorded in Book 2857, page 129 in the Nash County Registry. So everything on the resolution is the same from last month, but we have corrected the 40 acres and the purchase price. The confusion came when we are skipping a step and recording a map that will recombine it with 12 acres that we already own that butt up to the corporate parkway. And you can see that on the map that you have in your packet.
Right. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we approve and adopt the amended resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Combs, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 16 is retiring service canine and donation request. I'll call on Sheriff Stone to make the presentation.
Thank you.
Sheriff, you have 3 items this morning. You gonna make all of them?
I am, sir.
Must be political season or voting season. Which one?
It's both of them, and while I'm up here, I need to go ahead and ask you for your support. So, political season's every day. Thank you.
Like when you're the sheriff, you're always in political season.
Yes,
are
sir,
you not?
that is, every day.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. The action proposed is to approve the request of Canine Chase. He's a Dutch Shepherd that was from Budapest. And I think the date that he come into service here, trying to look through it to make it shorter than what it is, was in 2016. He came with our office, and he was on the scene with our Canine team during the shooting on February 4th of 2021. William Tony, our Canine handler, he could not be here today because he had an unexpected medical doctor's appointment. He was on scene when there was a shooting on Interstate I-95. Deputy Tony probably will not come back to work because of those injuries he sustained, and the Canine was assigned to him at that time, and he's requested to keep the Canine, and that's the reason we're here today, to have him turned over to Deputy Tony. And Deputy Tony is still going through medical treatment, and it's up in the air of what his outcome's going to be for continued employment as a deputy.
Any questions on this item of the sheriff? Looks like he came in April of 2017.
17, that's right. Dog was born, yeah.
Any questions? Entertain approval for the request.
Move for approval.
Have a motion by Ms. Wilkins and second by Ms. Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. The motion carries, Sheriff.
Thank you.
We can move to item number 17, which is Nash County Detention Center inmate medical contract approval.
Okay. The Nash County Detention Center received a letter from Southern Health Partners dated June 15, 2022, terminating their inmate medical services contract with Nash County Detention Center as August 12, 2022. Nash County prepared and proposed an RFP in order to acquire an interest in a new inmate medical service provider. Nash County Sheriff's Office Detention Center is requesting approval of inmate medical contract agreement with IMS Correctional Healthcare LLC for services beginning on August 13, 2022 and ending August 12, 2023.
All right, any questions on this item? Sheriff, were they in the middle of a contract, or they just used this method not to renew the contract?
I think they used the method not to renew it. They were at the end of it, and then they notified us and just said that From what I gathered from Southern Health is they couldn't find nurses to come in and to provide services. And talked to several other sheriffs across the state, and they're running into the same problems. And they declined services with Southern Health, and a couple of these other sheriff's offices have went with IMS, and I've got good feedback with that also.
Do you know if it's a big change in the cost or similar to what it was?
It's going to be similar. It's going to be totally different. From what I gathered from the doctor is they're going to try to do more in-house instead of sending them out, where the doctor does more in-house, looking at the records and things of that nature and try to cut down on it in those manners. But it's a different methodology of the way that they're trying to practice medicine in the jail.
Okay. Any other commissioner have questions?
Mr. Chairman, did a bid go out for numerous proposals?
I think we had two that come about, and this was the one that looked more like what we had. But it is very difficult times. What I'm finding out is there's a nursing shortage, and there's a real nursing shortage working in detention and prison facilities.
Thank you.
And our other option would have been with the health department. I just think that would be very overwhelming.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that you approve this contract subject to final approval of the sheriff's office and the county attorney, because Ms. Moore and I have made some changes to the contract, and we're waiting to hear back from the provider as to whether they approve our changes.
Right, and that's what our instructions say here. Other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, I call for a motion of approval or deny the request to authorize the contract to be signed pending final approval by the attorney and the sheriff's office or staff.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? Was it Commissioner Wilkins? I'm sorry. Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on the motion? Y'all two laughing at me at the same time, disturbing me that. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries as well, Sheriff. If you want to go ahead with your last item, which is 18 Nash County Detention Center Prime Health Services Contract Approval.
Okay, this description is Nash County Detention Center is requesting approval of Prime Health Services Incorporated agreement beginning August 13, 2022 and ending August 12, 2023. Prime Health Services Incorporated will provide cost containment services for offset health care of inmates housed at the Nash County Detention Center. This service was included as part of the services previously provided by Southern Health Partners, and now the IMS Corrections does not do this, so we needed to go out and find a third party for that.
Okay. Seems like that would be better anyway, rather
Right,
than you
they'll have a
monitoring your
little
own
bit more
self.
interest in scrubbing some of the bills.
Right. All right, any questions on this item? Again, I call for a motion of approval of the request authorizing the contract to be signed pending final approval by the attorney and the sheriff's staff.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here this morning.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next item is the item we added, which is 18A, Dorchester Sewer Lining. I'll call on Mr. Boone at this time. Good morning,
Thanks, sir. Good morning. Seems like usually when I come up, it's after lunch, so. 'cause we're
Doing
making
pretty good
progress
today.
this morning.
Don't jinx us.
So I want to first say I appreciate the Commissioner's flexibility considering adding this item to the agenda. And as Commissioner Davis indicated, we had advertised a couple of projects related to the Dorchester sewer system earlier this month, really late June. And we had a bid opening last Thursday for one of those contracts. The other, we did not have an adequate response, so we're having to re-advertise that project. But the matter I have in front of you today is the sewer relining project. If you had a chance to review the memo and the bid tabulations, you'll see that there's about 3,000 linear feet of 8-inch sewer in the collection system there in Dorchester. We're looking to reline that system. It was constructed in the late 80s. So we're north of 30 years, approaching 40 years on that system. So we opened bids. We received 5 bids, the lowest of which was received from Tri-State Utilities. And given their potential availability to mobilize and begin that work this month, and the fact that commissioners did not have another calendar meeting until September, wanted to see if we could bring this forward for the commissioner's consideration, hopefully award, so the Tri-State finds the availability, we can go ahead and get that work completed. So with that said, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Boone on this item?
And I guess one thing I would mention, just for your edification, this is a project that the county will be funding with some of the ARPA funds that the county received from the federal government, American Recovery Protection Act.
It looks like you're also trying to get it in ahead of a new flow meter being installed as well, which I fully understand.
Yes, sir.
All right, no questions. I entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on this motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was 18A. We'll go to item 19, which is capital project ordinance for Middlesex Corporate Center, Golden Leaf Foundation grant sewer project. Call on Ms. Wood at this time. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Okay. The town of Middlesex and Nash County have received a Golden Leaf Foundation grant of $500,000 for expanding investment in the Middlesex Corporate Center for assistance with sewer construction. The grant funding requires a match from Nash County of $30,660. This ordinance is presented to set up the project ordinance to support the project funding and the related expenditures. Requesting approval for this project.
Any questions on this item? Seeing none, all in favor of the request, let it be known by saying aye.
Give a motion.
Excuse me, I do, don't I? I was checking to see if anybody had called for a recess yet, but hadn't done it. Anyway, thank you, Commissioner Combs. I entertain a motion for approval of this request.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Combs, there a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. If you would move to item number 20, which is capital project order for Middlesex Shell Building 2.
Okay. Nash County recently sold the first shell building at the Middlesex Corporate Center. And in order to keep the economic development momentum moving forward in the area, the proceeds received from the sale of the first shell building were approved at the May 23rd, 2022 public hearing to begin efforts on the second shell building at the corporate park. This ordinance is presented to set up the project in order to support the construction of a shell building number 2 at the Middlesex Corporate Center.
Any questions on this item? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on this motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion stands approved. Next item is an animal facility capital project ordinance amendment.
Okay. The attached project ordinance amendment is presented to include additional donated funds to support the addition of alternate number 1 for multi-part epoxy flooring to the construction of the animal facility. It just includes an increase of $42,000 for the donation of that project, for that part of the project.
And that is to put epoxy floors in
That's
the back out
correct.
there. That was a donated item.
That was a donated item in the alternate number 1.
Gotcha. All right, any questions on this motion, this item? Entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on this motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. Item number 20 is budget amendments. Ms. Wood?
The following budget amendments are presented for the board's consideration for fiscal year 2022-23. I have a few more reappropriations from fiscal year 2022. The first one is with emergency services. This is to reappropriate unspent fiscal year 2022 supplemental emergency management grant funds and grant funding from Duke Energy Foundation to assist with the installation of a transfer switch at Nash Community College, Nash Community College's continuing education building for emergency shelter operations. The total is $42,630. The next item I have is with aging services. This is to reappropriate $18,862 from fiscal year 2022 Meals on Wheels donations. The next item is to reappropriate unspent fiscal year 2022 North Carolina Office of State Budget grant funds for Register of Deeds. This funding requires a 100% county match, which will be provided from the Register of Deeds Automation Reserve Funds. It was a grant of $2,000. The next item is with emergency services, and this budget is to, and so there are my reappropriations. The next item, this budget amendment is to make funds available for supplemental grant of the American Rescue Plan from the State of North Carolina Department of Public Safety. These funds are to fund projects related to Homeland Security, planning, operations, equipment purchases, training exercises, and other emergency management-related items. It's for $15,320, and no additional county funds are required. The next item is a general fund transfer. This budget amendment is to budget fund balance appropriation for the county match related to the Middlesex Corporate Center Golden Leaf Foundation grant for the sewer construction and the project that was just recently approved. Number 6 is with economic development funds. This budget amendment is to budget the transfer of economic development funds to the Middlesex Shell Building Number 2 as approved in the public hearing on May 23rd, 2022. Item number 7, that was a budget amendment for Rural Operating Assistance Program. I've asked to delete that budget amendment. It will be presented at another time. And the final budget amendment I have is an add-on as well. This is from Cooperative Extension for Farmers Market. This budget amendment is to budget funding from the Nash County Tourism Development Authority to the Farmers Market to host the Visit NC Farms app. This app connects statewide residents and tourists to farms closest to them with local products and agricultural events. There are approximately 40 farms and agricultural businesses in Nash County that are included on that app. It's a $4,000 request.
Okay. Any questions on either of these from Ms. Wood? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve budget amendments 1 through 6 and item number 8.
So moved.
Approved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item on the agenda, no board appointments this month. Okay. Next item on the agenda is commissioner comments. Entertain any comments that a commissioner wishes to make at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Wilkins.
I just wanted to brief the board. I briefed some of you, those that did not attend, on the National Association of Counties annual conference, which was held in Colorado this year. And just briefly, I'll go over again in case the public is interested. We elected new president Denise Winfrey, first from Illinois, first vice president for National Association of Counties, Mary Jo McGuire from Minnesota, and second vice was James Gore, which we actually took part as in voting for. The other two, I understand, moved up to their respective positions. So it was great. And the veterans group was calling for an Operation Greenlight initiative to take place November 7th through the 13th to show support for veterans and have a green light burning from the county buildings in all the counties in the U.S. We learned about rural banking deserts, and they talked about the new 2023 Farm Bill. There was a lot going on every day, started at 7:30, maybe ended at 6:30 or 7 every evening. So a lot, brought a lot of information home, and anyone who would like further information, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good report. Other commissioner comments? Mr. Belfield?
One thing that a lot of emphasis is placed on at the annual conference was opioid or addiction. And they encouraged all counties to set up a committee that they can deal with addiction. Because one thing that I attended a couple of workshops on that, and one thing that I questioned in there was we talk about, and which is good, to set up a committee of addiction. It could be social service, health department, any way you want to set it up, but set up so you can deal with and treatment. It can, hospitals can be involved in it also. Nothing was ever said. It basically was just the emphasis on treatment of those who are addicted to it, but nothing was said about the supply.
Oh, supply, okay.
Yeah, supply. Where it's coming from, why we have such a high rate of addiction and deaths in some of the counties across the state, across the United States. I think it's an issue that we need to address, but we don't have to follow the directions that the NACO has put out, because they have a national committee also that's working on that, that's got recommendations. And I had them in, I thought I had them in my vehicle, but evidently I left them in the house where I had looked at them for a second time. But the conference was very interesting. I didn't like the airplane ride, nor like when we landed in Denver at the airport. It's so huge, and it took us an hour to get our luggage. And I heard a lot of comments about that from others. Other than that, I thought the conference was it was well attended, and not only that, they had some helpful workshops for you to attend. And some of them overlapped each other, that you would like to give this one, and you had to decide now which one is more important than the other, or where you think you can get information that will help you, that you could take back to your county. And next year, I think it's supposed to be, Mom, you and Gwen, isn't it supposed to be in
Austin, Texas. I believe it's Austin, Texas.
Yeah, Austin. Yeah, I know it's going to be in Texas there. I'm unsure whether it was Austin or Fort Worth. It's been in Fort Worth before. So next year it'll be in Austin, Texas. And some of you who have not attended national meetings, I would encourage you to go. There's some very interesting workshops that go on at our national meeting to help counties in in whatever situation, solutions to different challenges that counties have, including budgeting. That's
All right.
my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Bellfield. Mr. Outlaw.
Yeah, I just got two things. I know this board is very familiar with a volunteer group over at the Ag Center called the Master Gardeners. I think there's maybe 30 or so people that function with that group. I'm just thinking that the general public may not be aware of what they do and the fine job that they do. So possibly at one of our mid-months, we might want to bring them in and let them maybe have a slideshow or something to show exactly what they do. They're a fine group of people. They do beautiful work. Recently, at the entrance area, and Jonathan may have had something to do with this as well, they really cleaned it up and made a nice entrance area there. So it's a beautiful work they do over there. It's just beautiful gardens. If you just want to ride through and walk through, so I would encourage the general public to be aware of that. I'm still waiting to hear back from Ms. Vick regarding the September meeting, so I know they're very busy at this time of the year, like Ms. Leggett had said, so once I confirm that, if I can, we may possibly have to move it out to accommodate their farming operation, but if we do, then we'll find something else to bring to the group. I wanted to also mention, if you may be aware of this. If not, you might have seen it in the July 28th edition of the Nashville Graphic, four-way stops in Nash County. Michael Turner was killed at the intersection of Old Carriage and Westmount Drive some years back. I've been in constant communication with his grandparents, Joanne and Reese Turner, and I talked to his dad occasionally, Dee Turner. And since that death, they have done some things with lights and so forth to try to mitigate possible incidents at that area. But what we are getting ready to do at that intersection is put in a four-way stop. They're going to do it at 5 locations in Nash County. It's in the paper. I'm going to read it to you. My ultimate desire would be at that intersection would be to have a roundabout. But it's just simply a matter of funding, and I hope that funding will be available at some point down the road. But if any of these are in your district, there's going to be four-way stops put in at Swift Creek School Road at NC4 and NC48, Old Bailey Highway at Macedonia Road, NC 581 at Strickland Road, the one I just mentioned, Old Carriage and Westmount, NC 97 at NC 231, and NC 33 at Watson Seed Farm Road. In Mr. Arrington's district, if you go out to Taylor Store Road, I think recently they put in a four-way stop there. It's very nice. It works very well, but I think it will at least reduce the accidents that are happening in those intersections. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw. Other commissioner comment?
All right.
Mr. Arrington?
Well, I attended the NACO conference also, and Mr. Bellfield, I don't believe they can grow anything out there. North Carolina is such a green state, and Denver, like I said, looks kind of like a desert, like they can only grow grass or something. But it helps you appreciate our state, how green it is, and how naturally beautiful it is, just like Nash County. While I was there, I did attend the workshop that was diversity and inclusion workshop, one that I've spoken to my fellow commissioner and county manager about diversity, creating a diversity policy for Nash County and our staff so that everyone can feel like they're receiving the same equal treatment as far as employment and promotion. So that was a very interesting workshop, and I hope that our staff will work on having a diversity and inclusion policy, and mainly, as my point is, I would like to see on our executive staff inclusion policy that will include more African American that meet the skill base We always talk about meeting the skill base of what we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Other comments? I'll take very little time. Our housing report, I didn't think I would have it, but it did show up at 7:02 this morning. And we had a little drop-off in new home constructions. We had 24 stick-built and manufactured home new permits, and again, I'm totally surprised it was 17 different builders that pulled those permits. It's not a lot of multi-permits pulled. In addition to that, we had $8.7 million worth of commercial construction permits pulled as well. So that would help increase the total value of the permits for the buck, even though the homes were down just a little bit. But it still looks great, much more homes than what it has been for a very long time on a monthly basis. The other two important things that most of us were involved in, of course, we had two very good events this past week in the ribbon cutting, or excuse me, not ribbon cutting, I wish, but the groundbreaking for the Pet Connection out at Nash Community College was well attended, and Mr. Hill was able to learn the value of a tent, even though it did cost him $500 because it rained a little bit during that event. And I was surprised to say he was glad he spent the money. He didn't do that often. And then, of course, on Saturday, we had the dedication for the Carter store at Miracle Park at Cooper's, which is also well attended, and I thought was a great event. And as I stated there when I pulled up, I thought it was going to be the best attended dedication that we had ever had, but I realized they had a girls softball tournament going on in town as well, and the whole park was full while we were there, which was a great sight to see. I understand we filled up all the ball fields in Rocky Mount, Nashville, Red Oak, as well as Cooper's Park, for that girls softball tournament. And I did see quite a few of those families throughout Rocky Mount and Nashville throughout the weekend. So it continues to be the recreation itself seems to be a excellent driver for the TDA, or Tourism Development Authority in Nash County, and continues to keep our revenue increasing each year. But with that said, if no other comments, I'll turn it over to Stacy for our manager's report, item number 28.
Good morning. Commissioner Belfield, I just wanted to make a comment in reference to the opioid information that you brought to the board. Just a reminder that Nash County has the CARE, the Coalition for Addiction, Recovery, and Education, and that group does include folks from our DSS, our health department, our hospital, as well as many other providers, and we will be coordinating with that group with the expenditure of our opioid settlement money moving forward. So that is a very active group in Nash County, and Nash County was actually one of the first counties in the state to get an active group around opioids going in the state, so we're proud about that. Just wanted to let the board know that we have reached out to staff via email to let them know that we are recommending voluntary mask wearing. You all are getting the weekly reports on the numbers of COVID cases in Nash County, and we've had a little exchange via email about the fact that now that testing is so available to our citizens in their homes, that we may not be really seeing an accurate number on those weekly reports. We definitely have experienced a spike in cases amongst our staff, and we've had some departments to really kind of suffer the last couple of weeks. So just know that we are dealing with some staffing shortages due to COVID, and we are reaching out to staff and supporting mask wearing at this point in time. It's not mandatory, it's voluntary, but we are putting that out there that we support our staff wearing masks. And to give you an update on our search for our emergency services director, just want you to know that we've completed an extensive survey with employees, fire chiefs, and other relevant stakeholders to look at data. And also, we're working on some interviews with some strategic positions within that department, just making sure that we do our homework and do a thorough evaluation before we put that position out for recruitment. But that is in the works, and I wanted to give you an update on that. Also update you that our planning director, Adam Tyson, along with our assistant manager, Scott Rogers, is in communication with the city of Wilson about the transportation planner position. We've talked with some of you about moving that position to the city of Wilson, and we're in conversation with them and hope to be able to report on a successful transition here pretty soon. I also want to let you know that we have followed through with establishing a safety and security officer for this building. So we have a staff person in place downstairs, and we're working on procedures at this point in time. He's doing a thorough evaluation of this campus, and we will be working to get him off-site to take a look at some of our other facilities as well, to start to build a foundation for a countywide safety and security program. And also to let you know that Scott, our assistant manager, has been working with staff on that list that was requested last month of the non-state maintained roads. We had a conversation about that when we had a resolution for DOT to take over a road. It was requested that we come up with information for Nash County about which roads are non-state maintained so that we would know how many of those we have hanging out there. For the co-responder program that we've started to report on, for the month of July, there were 29 referrals, so they have been able to get those numbers up. 27 of those were from our DSS, and 2 of those were from our sheriff's office. And they are continuing to work on bringing training back to the staff for both DSS and our sheriff's office. And a reminder that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Annual Conference is August the 11th through the 13th in Cabarrus County at the Concord Convention Center. I believe most of us are attending that, and Janice informed me this morning that she is in communication with the hotel on solidifying the rooms for that event. We were put on a hold situation for the rooms, but Janice is working through that for us. I think Adam did a thorough job of providing you with information about the land use plan, the countywide meetings that are going to be held, but if you have, if you still need additional information about when and where those meetings will be held, I'll be glad to give that to you. And our clerk informed me that we need to start thinking about a couple of dates for a joint meeting with our school board in October. So here we are at the beginning of August. I don't know if you want to start looking at calendars now and pass some dates along, or if we want to do that at a later time.
Is this the meeting that they generally host? I believe?
Yes. You want to wait for them?
Well, I'm asking kind of, is that what we generally do, is have them to give us dates at that time, or do we always initiate it?
We reach out to them to request
I got
their availability. Then we'll come before the board
you. Okay.
and choose a date.
Okay.
With the difficult we have, I would say it's not too early to do that.
Right. We'll start working on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So just a comment on that, would you please make sure they give us more than one date? Multiple dates would be good.
Absolutely. And now that the town of Nashville will be joining Nash County in economic development, we're working on getting the Economic Development Alliance off the ground. That alliance will be a partnership between the county and the 11 municipalities to work together to advance, encourage, and sustain new and established businesses. I would like to ask that Commissioners Dan Cohn, Gwen Wilkins, and Robbie Davis serve on the alliance. And we will also be building that board, and in the process of building that board, we would like for each one of the commissioners to identify a citizen from your district to represent your district on that board. And if you could be thinking about that and be ready to identify an individual for the Nash County Economic Development Alliance in our September meeting, that would be helpful.
Can you put out an email reminder on that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And that is all I have.
Will that board have a representative from each of our small towns? I hadn't had much discussion, but is that where we're headed, or do we know quite yet?
So at this point in time, and what our staff wanted to do was to get our commissioners appointed to that so we could have an in-house meeting to come together and review the draft that they've put together for the setup of the alliance. What I currently have as a draft for the alliance is that we've got 7 members that will be members from each one of the districts that you all have identified. We'll have the 3 commissioners. We will have 2 representatives from the town of Nashville. One will be a staff and one will be an elected official. We will have, we will ask the planning board chair to be on this, and also the town of Middlesex mayor. So the representation across the county will be from the individuals that these board members bring forward.
So even though the mayor's in my district, I still need one more person?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, questions?
On the non-state maintained roads, how does that impact roads that are in the ETJ? Is that included? So I'm thinking Sharpsburg, coming out of Sharpsburg, School Road, which is the road that takes you into the old new academy. I want to make sure, I want to know the status of that road because it's in bad shape.
Yeah, what I'm doing at this current time is looking at the entire list, which, because they don't have SR numbers, if they're assigned in a town, they're on the list currently. Yeah. But then I'm comparing that list to the Power Bill roads, and they will be removed if they are a Power Bill road maintained by the town. So that road that you're using as an example should remain on the list.
I know I don't know if we actually got it on the list. I can't remember for our legislative goals, but we spoke to our legislators about some funding from the state to assist these municipalities in roads like that. So that's an important issue. If you hadn't been over there, you need to ride over there and ride that road. Take your four-wheeler. It's in bad shape.
Go real slow.
Very bad shape.
Other questions or comments before we go into closed session? Seeing none, item number 29 is a closed session, and the closed session is for economic development and matters of attorney-client privilege. And I would ask the attorney, do you expect any action to be taken on closed session items today?
Yes.
Do not, okay. All right, well, at this time, there's no other business in public session. I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett.
5-minute break in between.
Sir?
A 5-minute break in between.
I'm gonna give you more than that.
All right, give me 10.
All right, I have a motion to go into closed session and a second. Is there any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, by a like sign. We take about a 10 or 15-minute recess and then convene in the commissioner's room. After a closed session that had no need for any action to be taken in closed session, it was open session. It was just a review of economic development projects as well as some attorney client privilege information. I would entertain a motion to close the August 1st meeting of the Nash County Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? We stand adjourned. Thank you all.